Hello Boilermakers, this is Jed Wilkinson for Hammer and Rails. Trying something a little bit new this evening with a little bit of a game wrap following Purdue's victory over Eastern Kentucky, 80-53. Couple things, as fans are still sort of meandering the stands here at Mackey Arena. Zach Edey and Lance Jones both still signing autographs more than an hour after the final whistle rung here. Purdue is now in some elite air here as a program. You're talking about 35 consecutive non-conference regular season victories. That is something that only two programs in the history of college basketball can lay claim to. You're talking about 2008 to 2012 Syracuse, led by Jim Boeheim, and the legendary early 90s Duke Blue Devils, led by Mike Krzyzewski, 91 to 94. If you've failed to appreciate the program that Matt Painter has built here over the last decade, you really kind of need to start to realize how incredibly special this time is for Purdue. You're also talking about a program that this year became the first in Big Ten history to attain a number one ranking, 3 consecutive years. First ever in the history of the Big Ten Conference. Talk about those storied teams, the Indiana Hoosiers led by Bob Knight in the 80s and the 70s. Tom Izzo at Michigan State, the Flying Illini. Those are programs that are historically great programs, and they can't lay claim to something like that. So really, Purdue fans, you need to really take a step back, and no matter what happens this year, right? So many of us are sitting here and saying, wait until March. What happens in December and January doesn't matter. It only matters what happens in March. You're missing out on an absolute great time to be a fan of the Boilermakers. Tonight, you saw a lot of really good things. You saw Fletcher Lawyer's continued aggression on the offensive end, something that we really saw last year at the end of the season really kind of go away from him, obviously, as his confidence shrunk. You're probably hearing a little bit of a cheer as Zach Edey is still now making his way to the opposite end of the court to continue signing autographs for waiting fans. But Fletcher Lawyer has just continued to show an aggressive nature on the offensive end, and his ability to hit those floaters and get to the rim really opens up the offense for guys like Lance Jones and Braden Smith and Mason Gillis, who are proving to be really, really dead-eye type shooters from the three-point line. Braden Smith, I think, is hovering around that 50% spot as a three-point shooter. Mason Gillis, I believe now is around 40 or 50% as well. So, Fletcher Lawyer's continued aggression is really going to open up the offense even more. And really, when you get those nights where he does struggle from the three-point line, he's not a one-dimensional scorer, kind of as he was at times last year. His ability to get to the rim and get into his floaters and in the mid-range has really, really improved Purdue's offensive outlook. On top of that, you have Mason Gillis coming off the bench and really doing a lot of little things. The first half of the game, those first 4 minutes, Purdue turned the ball over 4 or 5 times, and Mason comes in and grabs rebounds, and he's hustling, and he's extending plays, and he's hitting open shots. He ended up 1 rebound shy of a double-double tonight. And then you have, obviously, Cam Heide and Miles Colvin. Their continued growth is going to be incredibly important as the Boilers get into the meat of their season. The next game, January 2nd, as the Boilers head to Maryland. Those two guys are really, I think, the key for Purdue season moving forward. You obviously know what you're going to get from the big three in Zach Edey, Fletcher Loyer, and Braden Smith. They're going to eat up 34 to, at times, 36 minutes a night. But what can Miles Colvin and Cam Heide give you in those short spurts in the first and second half, where their athleticism really opens the floor up when Zach Edey may not be on the floor with them? Tonight you saw a little bit of that, obviously, with Cam Heide's alley-oop showcase for the second kind of game in a row. And you also see that in Miles Colvin's just willingness and confidence to continue to shoot the ball. The ball looks good coming off his hands, and he's one of those shooters where it looks like it's going to go in every time. So don't be surprised if somewhere down the line in this Big Ten season, you don't have a game where Miles Colvin pops off for 15 or 16 points because he hits 3 or 4 3-pointers and he can get out and run in transition. So, heading into Big Ten play, the Boilers have positioned themselves really, really well. Obviously, sitting at 1-1 with the kind of the surprising loss on the road to Northwestern. But the Boilers kind of have positioned themselves again as the clear favorite. A lot of people were talking about the Fighting Illini as being kind of a dark horse candidate to challenge the Boilers, but obviously with the recent news of Terrence Shannon Jr.'s purported issues in Kansas, I'm not going to kind of mention those things, but that obviously changes the scope of that program season. You're talking about a guy that was a first team, consensus All-American type of player for Illinois, and pulling him off of that roster leaves a lot of questions for them, and likely needing to rely pretty heavily on Coleman and the transfer in that they have from over in Europe, I believe, off the top of my head. But then, obviously, probably going to have to rely on Luke Good, sophomore, who a lot of Indiana basketball fans will be, high school Indiana basketball fans will be familiar with, but also, a player that a lot of Purdue fans will remember, Draven Gibbs-Lawhorn. They're going to have to rely on him a lot more. He's not been playing very much so far this year. Really kind of popped off the floor there in their first game, where I think he went for 16 or 17 points, but really has seen his minutes drastically reduce over the last couple of games. I think he's averaging only about 4 or 5 minutes a game. They're going to need him and his scoring ability. Say what you want, think what you want about the young man. His offensive ability was wanted at Purdue for a reason, and he can go out and score in bunches, and he's has that capability in him. So will the Illini be successful without Terrence Shannon? I don't see it happening. They're going to be a really, really hot and cold team. Could they go out and beat a Purdue without Terrence Shannon? Yes, they are that talented, but there's just no consistency without him on the floor. A guy that can go out and get you 25 points a game, and that's the kind of player that he is. That kind of leaves it up now to Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin is probably the clear-cut second favorite team behind Purdue if Illinois is going to be without Terrence Shannon Jr. for an extended amount of time. Wisconsin's kind of got one of those classic Bo Ryan teams. They shoot the ball well. They're a little bit more athletic, I think, than people may realize. And, they've got some really good, solid players up there, most notably Connor Essegian. Again, another kid that Indiana high school basketball fans are going to recognize. He is a flat-out player. So I think Wisconsin's probably right now the second leading team behind Purdue. And then a lot of question marks are kind of following Nebraska. They're kind of a little bit of a surprise team floating in that bubble right now, according to Joe Lunardi. are they legit? Are they for real? Their schedule has been, to put it mildly, a joke at this point, but they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They are blowing the teams out that they are supposed to be blowing out. So we'll see if Nebraska ball is a legit program this year, or if they're going to fade kind of into the background as they have so often. Other than that, Northwestern, I think it continues to be a solid program, and IU, I think, is floating there kind of in the mid-pack as well. If they're able to return their players, Xavier Johnson's been hurt for another extended amount of time this year. Khalil Ware was out tonight with COVID, and they kind of struggled there for the first probably about 30 minutes of that game, and were able to pull away late and win pretty convincingly. So, a lot is to be seen with Indiana. The Hoosiers do have probably the second most talented front line behind Purdue, most notably with Khalil Ware and Malik Renew. So those matchups this year may in fact go a long way again for IU making the NCAA tournament. And if they can sneak a victory against Purdue, that might build their resume enough to solidly put them into the field. So not much more from here at Mackey. That still probably has 40 or 50 people here, as Zach Edey and Lance Jones are still signing autographs for kids. One thing I will say, we're lucky to have a guy like Matt Painter leading this program, and the guys that we have here are really solid guys. So check back at hammerandrails.com for all your coverage with Purdue basketball, and continue to watch our website for updates on any portal news, whether that's incoming or outgoing.